Hi, Michael Force here with Rise Digital Marketing Mastery Course. We are on lesson number 6 here. Lesson number 6 is going to really be the sales detective, so to speak. How to profile your ideal customer. A lot of people call it the customer avatar, finding the perfect customer. A lot of these kind of things. It's really a powerful strategy and formula to go after, because once you find your ideal customer, you can craft your product and or service, interest, passion, or idea around that customer, and they will buy from you all day long. So I'm going to break down exactly how to do that here in lesson number 6. So let's jump into lesson number 6 and get started. I'll see you on the inside. Hello, Michael Force here again. Welcome to lesson number 6, the sales detective, how to profile your ideal customer, part of the Rise Digital Marketing Mastery course here. Let's jump right into it. Creating your first customer avatar, really. Now, hopefully you've noticed we started out with a general perspective of marketing, and little by little we're becoming more and more specific. Basically, we started out with the most general view that we could take, which related to the perspectives and mindsets of marketing. We then narrowed it down to marketing psychology and learned about how humans think, how they behave, and how they have certain needs to fulfill and how they make decisions. Now we're going to talk about marketing strategies, and this will actually be our bridge into the real world, where we're going to start learning techniques that can apply to actually create the marketing communications documents, videos, designs, messages that will attract and convert our prospects into loyal customers. The strategies that we're going to be using here are some of the most important techniques that I've personally developed and used to expand and grow all of my businesses. In these next few lessons, we're going to be doing things like creating our customer avatar. We're also going to become very specific about what our customers need, how they communicate, and what words they use. And then towards the end of this program, we're going to get into marketing action steps, which relate to learning about how to build specific marketing campaigns, marketing pieces, sales letters, videos, websites, and more. So we're officially in lesson number 6, creating your customer avatar. Let's jump right into it here. The customer avatar. If you combine all of your customers into one customer, what would they look like? What are the commonalities of all your customers? Who are they? How old are they? Are they male, female, so on and so forth? If you want to truly make it as a business owner and marketer, it's vital that you combine your customers under one umbrella. To do this, it's crucially important that you list the commonalities that your customer base has. As you build out your customer avatar, you must continue to find the particular commonalities that make your customers uniquely similar to each other, include only those commonalities that have meaning and value, and discard all of the other irrelevant information. I first started teaching the concept of customer avatar in my trainings years ago, which is at a very high stage with some of my more advanced students. I did this training for business owners and entrepreneurs that wanted to learn how to grow and expand their businesses from a little tiny startup to the 10, 6, 7, and 8 figure level and beyond. Now, this program that I had and that I trained on was very expensive, $10,000 to attend the live training, but this was a highly compelling, effective, and unique strategy to create the customer avatar and then use it as a tool to create fully effective and highly efficient marketing campaigns. The customer avatar was a real innovation to many business owners and operators. Folks really seemed to like the training and they got a lot of value out of it, and I keep hearing over and over from all of those people, even to this day. This is one of the most valuable marketing tools that people have learned from me. So how exactly do we go about creating our customer avatar? Well, in creating your avatar, what I'd like to do is first imagine that you've taken all of your customers, all of your prospective customers, and thrown them into the room. Let's say there are 1 million of them, and you could put them together in this room, and you could take all of the things they have in common that is unique to all of them and make them good customers for your product and service. And let's say you could combine just those unique aspects of your customers together into one person that would act as a sort of face or avatar to be your ideal customer. What would your ideal customer look like? This person, this ideal customer, this customer avatar. Now keep in mind, we're only targeting those aspects of your customers, those parts of them like their traits and their demographic and psychological commonalities, as well as only the traits that make a difference. So
You put 100 humans in a room and you say, okay, what do these people have in common? You could be thinking of it in a highly general saying, well, these 100 people all have skin. But let's say that I'm creating a product to teach people how to lose 20 pounds of belly fat and said, okay, well, what do these 100 people have in common that is relevant, unique, and important? And you might say, well, they have between 15 and 30 pounds of belly fat, and 85% of them are female, and over 80% of them are past age 40. Okay, now you're getting to commonalities that matter, identifying unique characteristics that make a difference. Another way to think about it is to imagine that you've made a list of different traits that human beings could have. Just 100. And we humans have a lot more than 100. But let's just say that we kept that list to 100. Was the idealized customer male or female? Was he or she an adult, child, or adolescent? Were they under 21 or over 21? Do they have a college education or not? Are they happy or sad? Do they have high self-esteem or low self-esteem? Do they have a high IQ or a low IQ? Do they have income over $50,000 a year or under $50,000 a year? We could start going through all the list of all these things that are typical of humans, and then we could break them out into groups. For example, let's say that we came up with 100 of these various characteristics, and maybe we made a big grid, almost likely we're making a giant spreadsheet, if you will. And we listed them all the way down the side. We made hundreds of rows with these hundreds of characteristics. And then what we did is we took our 100 people that we had in a room and we listed them across the top. And we went down the list and we made an X where each of these people had one of these characteristics. So maybe person number 1 is an adult. So we put an X in the adult category. And maybe they made more than $50,000 a year. So we put an X in the more than $50,000 a year category, and so on. So we have this big spreadsheet that you're able to look at, and from this spreadsheet, from the X's in the grid, you're able to see what these 100 people have in common. Now, if you have 100 people and 100 characteristics, this would be exactly 10,000 boxes on the spreadsheet. That's definitely a bit intimidating, but that's absolutely nothing compared to 1,000,000 people that you might be looking at. You also might be looking at thousands upon thousands of potential characteristics because we humans have all kinds of unique features, such as eye color, mentality, IQ, strength, social class, unique fantasies and desires, and whether our fantasy is to be a higher status person or whether our fantasy is to be someone that is loved or admired by people. These are all potential ways that we can slice and dice this. Imagine a big giant grid that had millions and millions of squares in it, and you had to go through and put X's inside of those squares where your particular customers have the trait that makes them a good prospect for you. Which squares would each of them fill? In other words, how could you tell that person was a good prospect customer for you? Among the things we've learned so far was seeing that our customers' fears and frustrations are, what their wants and aspirations are. We've learned to dive deep and get into more and more specific by talking to them and asking questions. Well, as you list all of these traits that your customers have in common, and then you imagine combing them all together into one, now you're creating what I call a customer avatar. Again, include all those commonalities that have meaning and value, and discard anything else irrelevant. Now, when you create a customer avatar in your mind and you start writing down a description of them, keep in mind that it's not going to be a description of a regular normal person. You're not going to say that this is a Caucasian female that's 5 foot 6 inches tall and 130 pounds, because that's way too general. That could be a description for anyone. Instead, you're going to be describing only those things that related to them being a good prospect or not. So you might say your avatar is female, and then you add in this by saying things like she's a female over age of 40 and under the age of 60 who has between 15 and 30 pounds of extra belly fat. In addition, this female is particularly afraid of getting heart disease and cancer and having a stroke in the next 20 years if she doesn't do something about her weight. She's also afraid of losing her spouse or having him cheat on her because she's physically unattractive. Okay, now we're starting to get into more specific fears and frustrations as well as one's aspirations if you list out all 20 or 30 of these. You're going to create a character or an avatar that's a really interesting and unique person to talk to. Now here's the key. As you build out your customer avatar, you should start to add very specific and meaningful characteristics that can be physical, emotional, or mental. They can be fears, frustrations, and fantasies, among others. If your marketing campaigns, marketing pieces, and ultimately all of your marketing communications, you only want to talk to these characteristics. So for example, if you have a woman who's been between the age of 40 and 60, and she has 15 to 30 pounds of belly fat, you're not going to want to talk to all other people. You're not going to want to talk to men. You're not going to want to talk about driving to the store or talk about football. What you want to talk about is what it's like to be a woman between the age of 40 and 60 who has 15 to 30 pounds of belly fat. You're only going to want to communicate on those channels that are meaningful and unique to your customer avatar. Now, as you continue building your customer avatar, you'll add more and more specifics. You'll interview your customers and find more and more commonalities. And you'll get so clear about your customer avatar that you'll start thinking of them as a real person. I even recommend that you give them a name. In fact, I do this very often when creating my avatars. And once you've got your avatar to the point where you can see them as a person, where you've given them a name, and where they have enough commonalities that you can see, you must begin to talk only on those channels that appeal to your avatar. It is this particular point where you can now start creating marketing pieces that speak to all of your prospective customers without breaking rapport, without making them feel like they're not the one you're talking to. And most importantly, with each of them feeling like you have created your message, your marketing, and your advertisements, your education, and your products just for that one individual person. You see, when you find the commonalities of your customers, you find out those specific, meaningful, and unique aspects that they all share in common. From their perspective, when you only talk about those things, you're only talking directly to them. However, what most marketers do is talk at people in a group, assuming they're all listening in at once. They even say things like, all you women out there who would like to lose weight, right? That doesn't sound specific. It doesn't sound particular. Instead, it sounds like I'm just an insignificant member of a big group that you're talking at. On the other hand, when you say something like, when I was 47 years old and I had 25 pounds of extra belly fat, and I was worried that I was going to get cancer, heart disease, and a stroke, and I was worried that my partner was going to leave me, find me unattractive, and I was very depressed. Now right there, I sound like I'm talking about myself, but I understand my customer avatar. I understand that they also would be very close, and there's an overlap with every single thing that I said. The more things that I say, the more they're going to say that sounds just like the person is talking about me. They sound like me, and it sounds like it was made just for them. So build your customer avatar and go deep, and then go even deeper. So let's talk about the voice of your customer. Different people have different ways of communicating with each other by using different languages. Here I don't mean languages like English, French, Spanish, or German. What I mean by different ways of communicating, for example, computer geeks communicate differently from fashionistas, who communicate differently from car guys. So what's the voice of your customer? Your avatar's unique language. Again, not their language in their common tongue. Down at the ground level, your customers are using very specific words and phrases and have unique value to them in the context of their distinct needs. Pay attention, listen carefully, and reflect regularly to pinpoint these power words and phrases to use when creating your marketing campaigns. And ultimately, what you want to do is create a dialogue with your customer avatar. As you develop your marketing campaigns, as you initiate a mental dialogue with your customer avatar, mentally connect and them on a human level and talk to them like you would talk to a friend. Now, hopefully you can see what's going on here. What I'm going to try to suggest is that most marketing is broadcast, like someone is standing at the top of a hill, yelling at the top of their lungs, saying, I've got good stuff, come and buy it. My stuff is really great, and you should invest in it. My products are high quality, so you should come and give your money for them. And this is what it sounds like to most people. It goes in one ear and out the other. Most signs that businesses put up outside, most websites, most television ads, we don't even hear them. They just look like visual, auditory, and mental clutter to us. We ignore them. On the other hand, if you can figure out a way to identify who your customer is specifically, then you'll be able to figure out their fears and their frustrations on an individual and wholly personal level. You can climb inside of them, knowing what it's like to be in their shoes, to the point where you actually start feeling the feelings they have and making the pictures they make. You can get into their unique language because you've listened to them, you've talked to them, and you've learned the words and phrases they use when they describe their fears, frustrations, wants, and aspirations. Instead of just being another annoying marketer or salesperson who's trying to get them to buy something that they don't need, who's trying to sell them something that's being sold to everyone else, you start to sound like a trusted advisor, like a colleague or a friend who truly understands them. You sound like you're entering into the conversation that they're already having inside their own mind. And the furthest extent that you take this is when you actually script out the dialogue that you have with the customer. You script out what it would be like to sit down and have a conversation with them on a human level and talk to them and have them talk to you like they would talk to a friend. And when you've done the reflection and research to understand how human psychology works, when you've interacted with your customers, you've practiced in your mind to step in their own shoes and to imagine what it's like to be one of them. That's where the power resides. When you've learned the words, the phrases, and the commonalities they have, when you've connected all the dots and you've actually created an image or customer avatar that represents those unique needs, those unique fears and frustrations and wants and aspirations that your customer has, then you can literally create a conversation with them that feels and sounds to them like it's truly personal. And doing this is incredibly powerful and influential. So let's do an exercise and create your customer avatar. Take out a pen and paper. In order to best persuade a large number of people to buy your product or service, you must develop a voice or communication style sequence that speaks to each prospective customer in a personally motivating way. Start by creating a customer avatar or mental image of a person is a combination of those highly individualized characteristics that make up your ideal prospective customer. Then script the communication sequence with them from the customer's point of view. Again, to emphasize from their point of view, not from yours. So let's go ahead and answer these three questions. What are the defining characteristics of your prospective customer, with focus on those characteristics specific to this group? Next, what are the common themes, stories, and phrases that your customer uses to describe their challenge and a solution, with a particular focus on the emotional hot buttons, or those words, phrases, stories, and fantasies that have a lot of meaning? And finally, if you have a script if you had to script out your dialogue with your customer avatar from the very first meeting all the way to the first purchase, how would it go? Pretend you're sitting down, interacting with your idealized customer, your avatar, and pretend they were describing things from their own perspective. How would this particular interaction go that led from the first meeting all the way to the purchase? Complete these three questions, create your customer avatar, draft your dialogue script, and then I will see you in the next lesson.